to the Voiceover Roundtable. I'm Mike Tobin.
And I'm Emma O'Neill. Every week, we get together to talk about all things voiceover, with a special focus on community.
Bringing you in-depth interviews, roundtable discussions, special performance events, and industry-leading guests.
Let's get started. This is the Voiceover Roundtable.
Our guest tonight has been the owner-operator of DB Audio in Toronto since 1997. He's becoming a leading expert in capturing the magic of the human voice through casting, directing, and as a recording engineer. He's a creative collaborator who understands what it takes to produce content that connects, educates, and influences. Please welcome to the Voiceover Roundtable, Mr. Dave Boire.
What's up, Dave? Hey, Dave.
Hello.
Show.
Thanks for inviting me and setting this up. Who's out there listening? I'm looking at this app. We got a couple of people in the crowd there. Are we saying hello to them?
There are a whole whack of people.
There's a whack of people.
There's a whole whack of people, and hopefully some of that whack will come up on stage later on and ask some questions. Our virtual stage, of course. But yeah, we've got a whole bunch. As Emmett said, we got a whole bunch of things we want to talk about, and of course we're going to take some questions from the audience a little bit later. But maybe it's an accomplishment to run a studio for a period of time. So maybe you can share quickly how you got started in the industry and what drove you to open DB Audio.
I had a feeling you might ask me that. So as a young child in the suburbs of Quebec, I always wanted to be a studio owner and record voices for a living. Truth be told, I was in the musical stream, so I went to York University after high school to play jazz. I was going to be a jazzer, and I learned that bebop wasn't my thing, and it involved a whole heck of a lot of work. So I ended up getting a degree in writing essays at the York University.
Which campus did you go to?
I was at York.
I was there too.
Yeah.
What?
Are we telling years here? It was 84 to 88, so you weren't even born yet.
No, I was 93 to 98, I think.
There you go.
Anyway, continue. Sorry, I just had to jump in.
Yeah, and it was funny, I was talking to my wife about this at dinner. I was like, they're probably going to ask me how in the heck I got into this business. But really, I got a job at a jingle studio, and basically we were recording musical advertising from 90 to 97. And Emma, where I have my studio now, 181 Carla, I've been in that building since 1990. Okay. So that's 33 years. But, or is it 33? Anyway. Yeah. So my intention was to be a jingle, a professional musician, but I ended up falling in love with the human voice at that time, because when we did jingles, we had to do voiceovers and sell stuff. And I really gravitated to that part of the business. So after doing that for about 7 years, I went out on my own. I borrowed $50,000, and I said, I'm going to build myself a studio. Now, as your listeners may be able to relate, $5,000 is pretty much all you need now for a recording studio. A really nice microphone. Not as nice as Emma's microphone, but
it's fancy.
A really nice microphone. And then, kind of the rest is history. I picked up Medieval Times, which was a big client of mine forever. So we were doing a ton of voiceovers and sound design and everything for their show for years, and a ton of e-learning over the years before that all went away. And one of my iterations, which will be interesting to some of the people listening, was I started Demo Maniacs because we were working with voice actors, and it's like, oh, can you send me your demo? I was like, no, I haven't got one. I was like, well, let's start doing this.
Let's fix that.
Well, it was sort of a service, right? And you talk about your community, Mike, and this is, it's a beautiful community. I really only, I'll just keep rambling here until you
ramble on.
But I really discovered how beautiful the voiceover community was during the lockdown, because I lived sort of a terrestrial life, recording and working with voices in Toronto. People were coming to my studio, producers were coming to the studio, and I hadn't realized that the world had briskly passed me by, and there were so many of you beautiful people with entrepreneurial and get up and go, promoting yourselves and recording from home. And I really only caught up to that. This made I was stuck in a different paradigm, right? You know, I was bricks and mortar. I actually came in with the tape machines. I don't know if Mike or Emma, if you've seen like a 2-inch tape machine, but we used to do overdubs to tape. All right. And so that was right at the end, 1990. You know, by 2000, it was gone, and it's been back, of course. But so I don't know if you got a sense of where I came from, and certainly, you guys know a lot more about what the voiceover world is like now. So hopefully, some of my insights might be able to help sort of bridge that, and because we kind of have to know where we came from before we can know where we are and where we're headed, right? So hopefully, I can bring us some of that old world knowledge to this little hoedown we're having here.
So it didn't take you long to like jump into it, because I remember when the restrictions were lifting and I booked a session with Dave and I was like, I can come in. You're like, no, Source Connect.
Right?
They're like, why would you come in? Just connect on Source. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, when I know someone's geared up, and you know, I think if you guys want to jump into one of the topics, it starting with barely getting this call going on time to doing a Source Connect session with a Zoom video at the same time. It's this if you've got someone like you, Emma, who's got a fantastic studio and a fantastic, you know, internet connection and a fantastic voice, dare I say,
Then I go,
then it's as good, if not better, to have you at home and, you know,
in the comfort zone.
in my pajamas.
I'm going to, Dave, I want to throw a couple of things at you. We're talking about gear and tech and stuff like that. I know
He's going to geek out. I'm going to go on mute. Oh, come on.
I want to try something new, kind of like a quick fire. This helps us getting to know you kind of thing. And they're really like one word answers. I'm just going to throw like 5 things at you real quick, and we'll kind of get a snapshot, albeit a very tailored snapshot of Dave. Okay, Dave, Mac or PC?
Apple products all the way.
All right. Mouse or trackpad?
I use a Magic Mighty Mouse.
Nice. For VO, cans on or off? Headphones.
Always on. I mean, for me, I use speakers. I'm not a big fan of them personally, but when I'm working with an actor or a voice,
right,
headphones.
We want them on. If you had a choice, analog or digital?
It's all digital. What analog portion would there be?
I don't know. If you wanted to, you could put together an analog. Okay, that's too hard a question. All right. For VO, condenser or shotgun?
I'm currently all the way with the shotgun, the 416.
There we go. All right, that wasn't so hard.
I like it.
You see, I knew this was gonna go well. You guys are awesome. Thank you for making this so much fun.
I want to talk about, so one of the things that I was kind of plugging about this was the casting side of things. So very often on the show, commercial and promo content get a lot of attention. But tonight, we kind of agreed to talk about the meat and potatoes, or if you're a vegetarian, then the lentils and spinach side of the business. And some areas you also work in on a regular basis, like e-learning, corporate narration. So maybe you can give the audience some perspective. How much voiceover work is out there that falls into these categories, and maybe offer a few tips for talent wanting to focus more on them?
Well, I'm an omnivore, so I'll go with meat and lentils.
Perfect. Love it.
But so fine tune the question again. Okay. Is there work out there? Yes. Do we touch all the work? Do any of us know what's really going on out there? No. That's why there's this round table. But as far as where e-learning was when I, in the early 2000s, there was a ton of e-learning. It was a third of my business, recording long form scripts forever and ever. I had one guy doing it all day, who happens to now be the head engineer at Revolution Recording. So all he does is albums right now. So I definitely got him out of that business. Oh man, he Revolution's such a beautiful studio.
It's gorgeous. Yeah,
they do music so it's as far from e-learning as you could possibly get. But let me just say a couple of technical things around it, and you would totally relate to, like who's getting the e-learning work. I mean, so much pharma stuff right now, so much, I mean, for years I did financial stuff. So the terminology, the people that are getting this work are crack sight readers, people who are heavily into Latin, who can read 17-syllable words. And this is kind of table stakes for this kind of business. So it's not for the lighthearted. A 30-second to 15-second spot, whatever, TV, radio, digital, we can all shine in that. But I mean, as you know, with all the chiropractic stuff that you and I have done together, you need that sensibility. You have to just have a head for those kind of words and stamina. You have to be able to read forever and ever, keep a consistent tone, have a tone that you can repeat over and over, like for revisions that are just going to keep coming too. So who's getting that kind of work? I mean, I know there's a ton of that work out. I do less and less of it. And that's probably because in a lot of ways it went from the bricks and mortar to the home studio world, or whatever you guys call yourselves. And then it's just gone global. So you can get this stuff done anywhere at any time. Like the pool of people reading long form narration in my sort of understanding has grown a lot, if not exponentially, right? So I don't touch a lot of that work, and I'd have to say it's a bit of a race to the bottom on pricing. So do you want to, is it still meat and lentils? Is it still a good meal to get out there and read? You tell me. I mean, you as an established artist, you can ask a higher rate, but at $250 for 10 minutes of narration or whatever, it's and up to an hour. What does Vox pay like that?
Oh God, don't even quote Vox. That was from 1992, and they have an up. I don't work for their rates.
Well, let's bash Vox then. We can't quote them. Let's bash them. Come on.
Wow, this like
I do not work for their rates.
You know, I want to ride that pool analogy, Dave, because you said that the pool is ever, expanding pool of talent. Yes. Most pools, they have a deep end, and they have a section of the pool where the water is a little bit warmer than others.
Explain. Is that where people have actually relieved themselves, or is
perhaps? But anyways. So then what's taken up the time in your studio? Like, what's the bulk of studio time at DB these days?
During the lockdown, 2021 was the year of pharma, but it was also the year of like messaging. So as opposed to the sort of what Emma alluded to was, there's commercial work and whatever, promotional work, and then there's corporate communication. Before there's the e-learning end of the pool where there's endless hours of stuff. So the corporate communications, corporate videos, and in the case of the lockdowns and the pharma stuff that I was doing, there's just a ton of compliance stuff. So it kind of falls into that same Latin category, but to me, it's not, this is how you do it. It's more, like I said, compliance, like in active ingredients and stuff, whatever. So that was the lockdown period, and that's kind of drifted off. But I'm now doing quite a bit of localization and what's the word? Trends. What's the word? Transcreation. Doesn't that sound awesome? I work in trends creation, but basically the global brands like Unilever and specifically Dove have products that they sell globally.
Yes.
Right.
And if they want to sell it in Canada, they often will version it for Canada with the terminology and the compliance or whatever it is, the regulations around what can be said. But this is a huge industry, and there are big companies that do this transcreation or and I think particularly because of the diversity, a lot of content that's created in other countries like South America can play in our markets now, because there's a lot more requirement or more appetite for diverse people in spots and things like that. So So transcreation, Google it. And I'm sure there's a bunch of things.
Yeah, in my my line of work, being bilingual, I tend to, I'll end up with a lot of the localization stuff, like things like you're saying is being transcreated for multiple languages across multiple territories, and they're like, oh, we need French Canadian, oh, we need English Canada, because US sounds different to us. So yeah, that's up my alley for sure. I want to dive a bit deeper, kind of into the two questions that most talent ask when it comes to whatever genre. So if we're talking about like the corporate stuff and the compliance and the pharma and the things that come through your doors on a regular basis, the two questions I see talent wanting to know about the most: number one, how do I find the work? Number two, how do I book that work? Want to weigh in?
How do I find it? And how do I get booked for it? And then, how do I get paid? What do I ask for? How much do I ask for?
Oh, that too. Okay, sure. Let's start with how do I find it? Where are those jobs? That like, let's say the ones that are coming through your doors.
I have to say, and this is, I kind of alluded to it in my intro, where I kind of discovered all you beautiful people geared up and ready to go at home. I was using the digital platform, so I was using Voices and Voice 123 to do quite a bit of casting,
right?
For the pharma stuff specifically, and we all have an opinion about Voices, formerly Voices.com, and Voice 123 and Dalago and whatever. But for me, regardless of what you guys want to do, which is get booked, what me as a casting director or as a producer trying to get this content produced, these platforms are so zippity fast. It's staggering how quickly I can get 25 really good sounding auditions back and presented to the client. And it hasn't made me lazier, but like I said, suggested the pool is bigger and bigger. What I've found is there's so much more great sounding talent out there. So how do I get the work? Be frickin' fantastic, for one thing. Be very good at what you do, and be very on the ball, be very fast. Like, casting is so, like, can we hear the voices today? Can we hear them reading our script today? That is not unusual. So how do you get the job? On these platforms, submit as soon as you can, and don't submit something from your phone. Don't submit something, make sure it sounds like you can pull it off. You can actually do a high quality recording from your home that same day as well. So make sure your quality of your audition is good. Make sure it's fast, and make sure you read the casting direction really well. I mean, if it says non-announcery or whatever, I mean, you can interpret all those age-old requests for direction any which way you like, but pay attention to it and because as soon as, what my job as a casting director or as a person booking talent is to exclude as many of the submissions as possible. I'm going to let that sink in a bit there.
And what's the easiest way, folks, to get excluded?
I'm looking for people to not submit because there are just so many good options.
Right.
So be, and then at the end of it, don't overthink it. And don't stray from your core stuff. If they want 55 to 65, and you're at 25, don't bother. And if they want a young perky teen, don't bother reading it if you're in your 40s.
I didn't sound like a young perky teen when I was a young perky
right.
teen, so.
But you've got one of the it voices, so. You're doing something right? So what I would say you're doing, Emma, is you're doing you. You are doing your strength, and it comes through on your demo. It comes through in your work.
Yeah.
And I mean, until you know where your strengths are, where the money is for you, you're going to have to experiment, and you're going to have to listen and pay attention to what's being booked. But straying from what you do is I think a recipe for just frustration and. I mean, comedy, animation, I don't work in that realm. I've done a lot of demos in those worlds with John Stalker and who was a couple of other demo producers, which we might want to just touch on at some point. But I hope I add some of that.
Oh, we will.
In a rambling way.
Yeah, I want to circle back to something you were talking about. So you're still giving the green light, thumbs up to online casting platforms, and is any stuff coming from agents, or is primarily either? Right. Okay, so there's an agent stuff in the mix, and there's online casting in the mix, and there's probably some direct listing people. Direct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the Toronto, I book primarily non-union voices, and the 3 agents in Toronto all have different style, and obviously have different rosters, Vox, P&A, and Tada, and I work with all of them, and they'll get the same breakdowns, from me, and how they differentiate themselves. I mean, you guys may or may not know, but I mean, they all have their strengths, but all those other things apply. Is like, how quickly can I get them back from them? How clear is their pricing? Because some of the questions you get back from some of the agents are like, I don't know. Can I get the auditions? We'll figure this out when you get the job. Whereas, so that's what the beauty of the non-union world and pricing and contracts is, the buyout. So when it stops being a buyout, it for a talent, but for a person like me trying to get talent for a talent buyer, they want a simple answer. Can we use this for 1 year digital broadcast? Yes, is the only answer they want. It's like, well, it depends if the moon's lined up with Venus and whether what the price of beef is, and then we'll tell you what the price is. It's like, no, we want the auditions back as quickly as possible, and we want the pricing to be clear. And it doesn't have to be inexpensive. I mean, the agents have different price points, and they also allow, obviously, talent to call their own pricing as well. So that's a whole other level, from how do I get the work, how do I get paid?
Mm-hmm.
Does that fill out in a bit?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on. Well, question number 2. How do I book the work? We're covering that. Brian has a question in the audience. He's asking if you should send in your auditions raw or produced. And I'm guessing by produced he means like processed, possibly.
Yeah, so processing is like comedy. It's relative. It's like, is this funny? Is this processing working? You don't want to overhype your stuff, but you also don't want it to be, you want levels to be as good as, like, you want to get them digital levels -18, not digital 0. Don't send stuff flatlining because it's not going to match with other submissions, right? I have to turn down a lot of stuff. But as far as adding music and sound effects, absolutely never use those. Yeah, that's one of the ones that gets deleted right away.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that question was grabbed. Very cool. So from the casting side of things, if you could give these are the top 5 things for talent to remember, what would they be? There could be more. There could be the top 3. I don't know. So, because we've covered be good at what you do, be fast in your turnaround, make sure that the sound quality is great, read the spec. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other show that people say don't read the spec, but we'll get into that at a different...
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, here's, something on the spec is, you're going to miss it, and they'll be listening for it. So, one of the challenges I think with auditions are people will give 2 or 3 reads, and it's like, well, I would say, 75% of the time I'm not listening to the second read. I'm not listening to the 3rd or 4th second of the audition a lot of the time. So don't submit 3 takes unless they ask for it. Okay. And even 2 takes is I most often don't listen to 2 takes. So
make sure your best take is the first one if you do send 2.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know how that sounds to you, but I mean,
it's fair. I think
if there's 100 auditions submitted, you're not going to listen. Like I said, you go the first pass. These 50 are not being considered, so you're down to 50, and then you go ahead.
No, go. Please finish your thought.
Oh, you go.
I was like,
I'm getting,
but we're talking about auditions here, and one thing that I was thinking about, because we were talking about, commercial, 15-second, 30-second. So if somebody has said, we're talking about how many takes and things like that, if somebody's sending an audition in for longer form, like a 3-minute corporate narration or a 10-minute pharma thing or whatever it is, so oftentimes I know that we as talent will see like a longer-ish script.
yeah,
How much should we send? Should we still, like, I kind of gravitate around that 30-second mark anyways. If you send me a 2-minute script, I'm not sending you 2 minutes. I'll send you probably 30 seconds. Is there something you want to hear? Is you other things you're listening for?
They just want the perfect read. So
Okay.
you should put that in every breakdown. Just deliver the perfect read.
Exactly.
But how much of it?
One of the, you'll know in 10 seconds whether the person's got it. The problem is, you're here on your energy level. Like some people will say, well, give them 3 reads, low, medium, high, or high, medium, low, whatever, bracket it, and that's if I think if your agent said they specifically want to hear from you. But if you're at a big cattle call or whatever they call them these days, I think 15 seconds is going to be ample. But here's the challenge: if it's really good, they're going to listen to some more.
Yeah.
So if you've got the time, go ahead. It's really the one thing I would just say: be gentle with yourself. Do what your best work and get on to the next audition. Like don't sweat it, and don't think that even if you are the perfect voice for it, it still doesn't mean you're going to get the work, right? Because there's so many things. I may hear a beautiful audition and I make it as a recommendation, but the client still has to, the producer has to hear it, and then the client has to hear it, and their reasons for choosing stuff are beyond me, right? They aren't necessarily all bad, but they're just beyond, it starts with how quickly do you get them in and how good does it sound? And then they start listening to the dozen that get sent to them. So, yeah, don't sweat it. Just do your best work and try. Be gentle with yourself, and then pick up some copy and practice, or go to a workshop. That's something I said on my list of things to talk about. Is like, what are you doing to get better every single day, as opposed to how many auditions should I submit every day? Is like, you have to be you have to be your best, and you have to be better than so many people to really make it in any industry in this world. And I think particularly in performance. Would you guys agree with that? Better than most people to get in the performance world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are you doing every single day to do that, to get better? Like thinking about shit and reading about shit, or are you just doing it? Are you on these kinds of calls, like this thing that you're doing here? Are you in workshops? Are you getting together with friends and jamming, like reading scripts, like whatever it is you want to do? If you give it your attention, all of your attention, it becomes the most interesting thing in the world. And when you find it passionate and interesting, and you lock into something, we're going to hear that on our end. And that's what we want our listeners, our consumers, whatever, we want them to feel it.
Yeah.
So work on yourself,
Dave, one of the things you kind of mentioned, and I know you wanted to talk about this. So another thing that can potentially get you in the door is possibly your demo. So maybe some tips on what talent should be including in these genres specifically, because again, like Emma said at the beginning, we shine a lot of light on the commercial and the commercial demo and the promo and this and that, but often these ones get overlooked. But I'm sure that there is, a form that people are looking for. There's a proper length these days, and there's things that you want to include. What should people be thinking about when they're preparing a demo for either corporate narration or e-learning or medical or whatever?
Great question. Well, I very early on, like I mentioned early on, in the early 2000s, whatever, e-learning was big, And not a lot of people had like just straight up narration on their demo. So I went out, I reached out to a handful, like a dozen people that I've been working with, and I said, here's a script, all of you submit, read that. So I had a whole handful of voices reading the exact same script. So when I sent it to a client, I said, well, here's 5 or 6 female voices that I recommend. They all, they could compare apples to apples. All right. So that was a really great tool. It made the decision process quicker for the talent buyer or the course developer or whatever it is.
Right.
So I would say, first of all, have a demo. All right. So a demo is better than
no demo.
You know, like a decent demo is better than no demo at all. So there is no perfect demo to do. I think the whole process of doing demos is a great learning experience because you're working on scripts and you're taking them apart. You're working with somebody, hopefully, who knows what they're doing as far as directing. So you're learning a lot through that process. And I've had like really experienced long time voice people coming to us. Like Bev Standing, I don't know if that name rings a bell, but she came to Demo Maniacs and said, I want you guys to do a narration demo for us. I'm like, wow, really? Like you've been doing narrations for how many years, you know? So constantly rethinking it isn't a bad thing, but working with other people, you know, working in a vacuum at home with your own little, you know, garage band and making it sound awesome and everything. I think back to workshops, but also with your demo, you know, work with a coach, work with somebody who's been in the business and take it seriously, you know. But what do you put on the demo? I would say the coolest websites as far as independent people are the ones that have like 10 or 12 clips on there. So here's an explainer for pharma. Here's an explainer for, you know, financial. Here's an explainer for, you know, save the planet or whatever, you know, like have a ton of options for people to click on as opposed to a linear demo where you have to press play and stumble across the one that sounds like what you want.
Oh, like voice Sam. So it's like you'd have.
Yeah, I think that's really
sliced up by read.
Yeah. Is that something you guys have?
I do not have.
Yeah, well, I use Voice Sam on my website, and it can kind of do both, which is the cool thing. So if you hit the button at the top, it's playing through everything, but you see the individual slices are titled and named out below, so you can jump to the one that, you know, that may say financial explainer or you know, or have the adjectives that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I think as a particularly, and here's the thing. Now you're talking to a seasoned veteran casting director, whatever the heck I come across as being, but a lot of like, you know, courseware developers or e-learning content developers they're not professional people. They're not used to working with professional voices. So think about that too, is make it really clear and straightforward. Like if you're going to send out a blast of emails to all the e-learning companies in the world, for instance, and they by some freak of nature click on the button and go to your website, it should be super clear what they next press to be impressed or to hear your voice, you know. So make it simple and clear, you know.
Yeah.
Because if it's too fancy and they have to look around what button to press, because there's so many beautiful pictures of you in your solarium or whatever it is, make it the button. If they click on your email and they get to a page, the next button they push should be making sounds. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like that. I like that. Should be very obvious what the call to action is. Play, press play, listen now.
Because they could have got 10 seconds of their time, and if they have to move on to another website,
cool.
From frustration, then I would say you're losing your audience.
Makes sense. So a demo and possibly an audition gets you through the door. We've kind of covered what books the job, because at the end of the day, you're making the referral, but it's up to the client. But with all of this stuff, especially with home record stuff like that, so if you're doing a directed session, would you be able to work with someone who doesn't have Source Connect, that they're recording on their end and sending you or is it now like you have to have Source Connect done?
Most of my work is Source Connect, so that's the value add that I bring to this new post pandemic. Is I'm sort of the spoke of the wheel. Like I host sessions from in your case your booth over Source Connect. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's the world I live in is real time approval. So if I've got a video, whether it's corporate narration or commercial or whatever, it's the real time approval. So the client's on there, the voice director's on there if I'm not the director, and we've got the picture up. So the participants in the call are hearing your voice, and I'm cutting it to picture right away, and they're going, "We love it, we're good." If you read at home, just to rewind a bit, the commercial stuff or the promo stuff it has to be real time. So it has to be Source Connect or come in my studio.
Yeah.
But anything that you're just mailing in that's going to either be synced to picture or has sort of a Sully content to it, you're going to be redoing it if it's not being approved in real time. And I could be, completely off base on that because of the old paradigm of me coming into my studio, producer sitting there having a cappuccino. So that does that make sort of sense? It's like
it does.
It's table stakes to have Source Connect, to be on Zoom and then send the files. That can work,
Yeah, that was Brian's question in the chat, and I know that Emma and I come across that quite a bit, where and it'll be Zoom or it'll be Skype or Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams.
Yeah,
I had one of those today.
It's a thing. But anyways, we get it done. You record it. The nice thing is, I think about that, and kind of answering Brian's question in the chat, like if someone is there directing and they're taking notes and they're redirecting you, you're kind of getting that approval in real time.
Right.
The only difference is whether you're going to send them the entire file session. And talent, if I can give you a tip, ask for that at the beginning. Not later. You want to know what that client is going to be expecting from you, whether they're, am I sending you the full session with outtakes and everything? The answer you want to hear is yes.
Yes.
As a talent, the answer you want to hear is yes. However, somebody might say, well, actually, just, can you follow along with us and we'll mark the selects and then you can take out the... It's like, well, okay, we'll do it. It's all good. So that means be good with your editing, folks.
Oh, well, you made a really good point, Mike, which is ask.
Yeah.
Ask up front. Is like
ask up front.
What should I be recording on my end? Should I do a backup or am I sending you these? Do you want any processing on this? Do you want some light limiting? Do you want any EQ on it? Like ask, because the voice director may not know that until he hands it up to the editor or to whoever. They're like, what the? So ask. But if there's if people don't know, then have your settings down and know that you can repeat them. You can send produced. Someone asked earlier, do I send it produced or raw and on Audition? But we're talking about the production now. And yeah, you may not want to send out flat audio. As long as you can do the revisions with the exact same sound in the same room with the same mic, then hype it a little bit, take out some of the woofy little frequencies and add a little sparkle on top. That's not going to be, that will likely help, I don't know, 50% of your clients they don't want to touch it again. They just want to chop it and throw it again.
Put it in.
Video. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned backups, and this is about if nobody caught that, I didn't want that to slip through because especially if you're on a Source Connect session, make it a habit to do this without somebody asking you for it, and without you having to ask. Run a recording on the side as a backup. You don't even need to say anything, because 99 times it's going to happen. You'll end the session. Everything was great. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. We've got everything we need. Talk to you another time. And then there's going to be one time where they go, it kind of glitched on that last take, but it was really good. The client loved it. Are you actually recording a backup? And then you get to be a hero.
Sure. No reason not.
Right? So always record a backup, even if you're on Source Connect, and even if they're saying your connection is super, record in the background. Get to be that hero.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to open things up to our room, I think. Emma, does
Absolutely.
that make sense? I'm sure they want to chat and they had some questions. And I know that Erica's arm is probably very tired.
Yes.
Because Erica's hand was up for a while. We had Naked Jen had her hand up for a while, and I think Naked Jen had to run. She might have had some clothes on. Oh, look who's in the room too. We got Mr. Snyder in the house, so we're going to ask about that later. But Erica, welcome aboard.
Hello.
What's your question? Thanks for joining us. What's the question for Dave, Erica?
Hello, first time caller, Follow Connect. So really happy to be here. And thank you for this wonderful roundtable. Dave, you spoke about your trajectory about becoming a sound engineer, working on jingles. That's what you had in mind. And you're also a casting director. So my question is, and I do have another question that is separate from this, but is it common for audio engineers to also be casting directors? And like, how do you make that part of your business model?
Cool question. And I'm kind of a full circle. Like, I've been in the business long enough to have been all those things. I was an assistant engineer, then I was a chief engineer, and then I ran I had two other engineers working for me, and I was just in the office, and then I got back into it. So I basically do everything. And I think you guys in the voice world basically have to be solopreneurs and basically wear all the hats. So you have to be the finance, you have to be the training, you have to be HR, you have to be the actual doer of the job. So I would say it's more common than I even alluded to the e-learning content developers who end up being casting directors themselves. They're trolling the web to find a voice to read their stuff. So I think the roles have really democratized, and nobody does one thing anymore. So it's when I got into the voice business, I was in the music business kind of, but the spoken human voice became a passion of mine. So follow your passion. What is it that you love to do? And make that, your strength. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I was interested in how you came to casting as well. And because it seems quite common for audio engineers who I'm affiliated with to be doing both worlds. So thank you for that. My second question has to do with the solopreneur. So I booked quite a few narration and medical narration jobs, and I would still consider myself fairly new in the industry. So I am finding that is an area that could be a niche for me, but I don't find much work comes through my agency. And actually, in speaking to one of the agencies that you mentioned, that I'm part of their roster, one of the three. One of the three. They mentioned that not a lot of medical narration comes through, and kind of, I don't want to say they dissuaded me from doing a medical narration demo, but it was something that I was in discussion about and making that investment. So would it be safe to say that VOpreneurs, that we should seek out our own work directly to medical narration company or medical companies to in narration work in that area? Or is there forth on the pay to play? By the way, I'm not on a play to play right now. I've been listening and just trying to figure out which one I want to delve into when I'm ready. Long question, but really the essence of it is there to find that medical narration work, and it's still within it should be going out and seeking ourselves. And now you can kick me off the stage, Emma.
No, not at all. Because he's going to answer and could go wild with this. So stick around, kid. Stick around.
Self-promotion is what you guys do so well. As I intimating, I really wasn't swimming in the solo VOpreneur world. So I was mostly in the agent world, finding voices and casting for these projects. So I don't know. I haven't got a lot of experience about shooting your demo or emailing people and saying, "Hey, I'm a great voice. Here's my demo. Listen to it and hire me." My sense of it is it's going to be harder to find voice producers, project managers, until they need the work. They're not really building a roster, they may build their roster, but it would be through the casting breakdowns, and then they work with you and they like your sound or whatever. But my gut feeling is to stay with your agents, and I'm sure Emma and Mike have a different take on that, but I would say get an agent that knows your work, and get work from them, because they're getting the breakdowns, so going out and trolling, or not trolling, but like kicking down doors until there's a job to do, they're not likely to remember you. Does that make sense? Sure, I said it. Yeah.
And Erica, are you with one agent? Do you have multiple agents, or do you have one agent?
I'm with one of this.
Okay. Sorry, your sound is really crackly. It's like you're...
Oh! That's poopy.
It just sounds like papers.
Are you wearing a very fluffy sweater in this cold weather? Emma's complaining.
Oh, right? This rain? Oh.
I know. One thing I was going to suggest is that...
Why did you ask that?
So sometimes diversifying your agency representation so that you're not just represented by one agent, that you'd be looking at West Coast, you'd be looking at Quebec, you'd be looking at Maritimes, but West Coast for sure, so that you're there's a little bit more of you being spread around to clients that aren't necessarily hearing your voice. And with
different stuff.
Yeah, with agents who are working with different clients who are, like one of my West Coast agents, they do a lot of financial explainers. So I get a ton of work through that I do not see it from my Toronto agent at all.
And so I was under this impression that in Canada, we can only have one agent across Canada, whereas I do have, I am on sites and I am with studios in the States, but certainly not across Canada. So was that a false impression that I got? How sure?
Emma, please.
Maybe we'll take this offline.
Yeah.
No, no.
It is a misnomer. Okay. To state that you could only have one agent in an entire country, unless the country is like Ireland, where I'm from, which is the size of postage stamp, that would make sense. But Canada's gargantuan. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Now, I want to kind of also weigh in on this in sort of the diplomatic manner. Remember when
he's better at that than me.
Emma's like, fling knives out. When you enter into a relationship with an agent and an agency, they're a business and they can choose to run their business the way that they want. So if part of their conditions or their preferences or, their policies, if you will, of being on their roster is that you are them and only them, then that's their prerogative and they're more than entitled to do that. Is it the laws, the rules, the written ways of business in Canada? No, it's not. But I think, a relationship with an agent is something that goes two ways and discussions can happen. And that's what's important because they work for you. You get, they find you the opportunities, you book the work, they make money when you make money. It goes around. So it's in everybody's best interest to say, let's figure this out together.
That's a very, very difficult.
Beautiful. Very, very.
But Erica, I wanted to kind of dovetail back to something that Dave was talking about, and it made me think because we talked about online platforms, we talked about agents, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in between. And Dave's absolutely right that most of the time when you're doing direct marketing, you're not going to, unless by some fluke of a miracle, you've emailed somebody and they go, as a matter of fact, we were looking for somebody this morning and here you are in my inbox and you sound great. So we're going to hire. It just doesn't happen. Right. So the way I like to think about it is it's easier for you to try to track down. I'm trying to look for a word for this, but it would kind of be like amalgamators. So people who might have access to opportunities for voiceovers on a fairly regular basis. And for example, that can be a studio like Dave has, or maybe that's a local video production company who does, explainer videos and commercials and stuff in your city or in another city. But they might, need people on a regular basis. And the reason I say start in your city is because you have that connection right away that you're local. So even if this is a global marketplace thing, that you can do voiceover for anybody in any place on this planet, which is really cool. There's still something special about connecting with somebody who has an office or a studio 10 minutes away from you. And they go, oh yeah, where are you in the city? Oh yeah, I'm here. Oh, the traffic this morning. Yeah, I know. Those kind of things. It's like instant rapport. So start local, production studios, music studios, different things like that, and build relationships there. They're amalgamators. They might have a few jobs, and they might just kind of put you on a list, and when something comes up, they send you an audition. Easy way to start.
Well said, Mike.
Thanks.
Love it. Thanks, the three of you. You're awesome.
Thanks for being here, Eric.
Going back on mute. Of course. Okay, bye.
And
The Snyder.
we've got a final answer on this. It is called this, and Dave's probably like, what is this Snyder thing that they're talking about? And it's like, so Steven Snyder, who has now joined us on the stage.
Thank you for having me.
Patented what we're going to call a method when you come onto the stage, but all of a sudden your audio is not working. And so Steven discovered for all of us and shared this information that if you leave quickly and come back quickly, all of a sudden it's working. And so when you hear us say the Snyder method, this is the guy.
And I have a long-standing tradition of making a disastrous first impression and having to try and reinvent as I go. So this really speaks to me on a very core level.
You're looking sharp tonight, though, buddy. How's it going?
Thank you. And I really appreciate you guys bringing me up. I had to say hello after such an incredible introduction in the chat. I wanted to get on Dave's radar. Dave, thank you so much for attending and being a part of what's truly an incredible clubhouse room on a weekly basis. So thank you for being here, everybody. And I did have a quick question for you. And I just wanted to ask you, Dave, what are your thoughts on video for your demos these days? Can you touch on how critical that is, some do's and don'ts? How necessary is it and how far is that? Any thoughts you have on video with your audio demo for VOs?
So just to be clear, it's not a video of you.
No, that would be terrifying.
Right? Although unique. I would say 100%. Anything that your voice is, anything you booked and has been used and is synced to picture, get that. I mean, a picture paints 1,000 words, and as much as people like to press play on audio players, if they can press play on a video, do not hesitate.
It's actually that people are starting to create video demos. They're producing it. So it's still just your demo. So it's not a spot that you've done. It's a spot that was written by a producer and created, but there's also now the video behind it. So it's a fake commercial with a fake script coming together to give a visual of what.
Yeah.
That
like they're pulling footage from wherever of products of, sort of segments and please. It's like remixing or it's like a fan dub, but for commercials and things like that. So people are actually making video versions of demos out of thin air, not actual content, but demo content.
I couldn't have possibly have put that any better than both of you right now.
We got you. So Dave, what do you think? But I think you said it. People like to watch.
Take the word fake out of it. All right. These are your very real voice.
Yeah.
And just because you booked it and it was used for, a dental hygiene video, doesn't make it interesting for me to listen to. So use the content that's going to best promote what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just because it used to be portfolio demos very early on. It was like, oh, well, I got booked for it, so I should put on my demo. There's some truth in that. But more importantly, if you're that heartfelt PSA voice guy who can read over a funeral home or a warm and fuzzy insurance spot, it's not fake. It's a sales tool for you. So I would lose the sense that these demos are fakery, or there's some kind of conniving way of pulling one over on people. These are putting your best sounding, your best reads out there. The challenge is in visual and also with voice production, with sound effects and music, is if that's not your strength and you try and do it yourself, you can look a whole lot worse than you can sound. So if you put a bad video together, it can do, I would say, do more damage than just a good read. So that's my thought.
And it's insights like that make this one of the greatest rooms of all time. Thank you all so much.
Very well.
Thank you, Steven.
Thank you, Steven.
Until next time. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like that that question has been around for a little while, and I think it is because there are people offering the service, and because there are differing opinions on whether it provides value or not. And I think it well, like the answer to so many of these questions, it depends.
Yeah, because it's always a different answer, which is really cool, actually.
Like,
there's always a different answer.
Are awards important? It depends. Very cool. I'm just going to pop and do this, I'm not going to call this a mid-show. This is kind of a 2/3 of the way through the show reminder. If you've joined us partway through this evening's show, this is the Voiceover Roundtable here on Clubhouse every Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, talking about all things voiceover with a special focus on community, bringing you in-depth interviews, roundtable discussions, special performance events, and industry-leading guests.
Is that supposed to be for me? Right. It's because I looked through the chat at this time. I always forget this part. And tonight, our special guest is Toronto-based owner-operator of DV Audio, Dave Boire.
We speak for a living.
Thank you for saying my name right. That's beautiful.
I'm glad that I am. I'm like, oh God, I usually double check and triple check with people on the pronunciations of their names.
I say it in French. Wow.
So this is
such a drink.
Just time check. So we're going to 9 here, because I'm not sure my battery is going to hold up. I'm going to have to go to hands-free or something.
We'll go till you drop.
Wow.
All of a sudden.
Maximum till 9. No, maximum till
Maximum.
I'm having I want to say mid-show, I'm having a fantastic time. And I am not lying when I say this community is... like I was at VO North, right, Emma? We saw you there. We saw a bunch of, and I was on a panel. But I'm just the community is it's so supportive.
Yeah,
so much, sharing and so much training and everything available. We sometimes forget. We get in our own little voice caves and we hang out there, and there is so much amazing collaboration and communication. So I'm super impressed, and I'm grateful to be here tonight.
I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. It is this community is redonkulous. Like we had, and there's, especially on Clubhouse right now, there are so many different rooms on different days at different times that are offering similar content yet different content. But it's so fun. Like Jen was just, Mike referred to her as Naked Jen. She has a shirt. It's a thing. And she has her show is called VO Besties, and it's another fantastic room. Like there's so many different rooms that we were all helped, and it's about continuing that. It's like I was helped every day. I am still helped every day by and I make sure that I surround myself with people who support me and believe in me, and especially on those days where I'm like, I'm crap, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm surrounded by angels every day, and all of them work in this business. And it really is. There's something very, very special about this industry, about this part of the entertainment industry. Very, very, very special.
It's fun. I'm looking in. Did you find anything in the chat?
I did not.
If anybody else wants to come up on stage, please raise your hand and we welcome you up on stage.
Brian has a question.
Yeah.
Would you usually cast a separate actor for a multilingual casting? This is for you, Mike. Or would you find a bilingual or multilingual actor? Dave, would you cast the same person with both languages? Would you choose to have different actors do French, English, or Canada? That's what
Yes. And yes.
yes.
There isn't a lot of value. Budget-wise, you should be paid double. If you're bilingual, you should be paid double.
Mm-hmm.
But my recommendation is more often, get native speakers for each language. So cast a French Canadian for the French and an English Canadian for the English, and all the way down. So yeah, I mean, having both skills is wonderful, but being sort of okay at French and really good at English is not going to fly unless there's absolutely no budget for the French, and then they make you read it. So I think because of the talent pool and so many really strong voices, French used to be a lot harder to cast. And now, you can there's a whole roster in Montreal at PN Agency. So it's not as likely that you'll get double carded.
Unless you're Mike Tobin, because he's fluent in both.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing Mike's demo as soon as I get off this call.
I want to kind of weigh in on the question because, again, it's one of those depends things. And I totally hear what Dave is saying, where from maybe a casting director, or even the client, the end client going through casting directors and agents and stuff like that, very likely will end up being different people for the different languages for the reasons that Dave mentioned, but also because sometimes those things don't happen at the same time. And what I encounter a lot is, maybe it's something that was done in the States in English, and now we're getting ready to come into Canada, so we've got to do the French version. So that whole localization stuff that's happening. The flip side of that is there are jobs, if you are fluently bilingual, there are jobs that you can get both. The ones that I encounter most often will be with direct clients, and particularly things like corporate training, explainer videos, and like a brand narration or something like that. Because especially with training, and IVR, and that's another big one. So phone systems, huge. So those are the ones that I see most often in both languages. But other than that, I mean, just the fact that if you can do both languages fluently, natively, then you have a leg up on a lot of people. And, I had a really good mind shift in speaking to a fellow bilingual talent. And she said, you're going to be something different to different people. So I was like, what? And she's like, well, look, to your Montreal agent, you're the guy who's great in English. I'm like, that's wild. To your Vancouver agent, maybe you're the guy that can work with everybody in English, but they're going to hire you for the French stuff. And then maybe in Toronto, you're getting both or whatever. So it's really, it depends. Right. It depends. We go back to that. But there's a lot of different reasons. But Brian, back to your question, would you usually cast a separate actor for multilingual? Oftentimes the stuff, especially if we're talking about commercial or things like that, it's often not done at the same time. So sometimes it just doesn't happen. But it depends.
Oh, that answer.
I know.
Hello?
I know.
Hey, if I could jump in, Annie made a comment way back about dubbing, which may tie into your language question because have either of you guys done any dubbing for animation? English?
I've done dubbing for film, but not for animation.
Not for animation, but I actually recently did some dubbing for kind of an AR, an augmented reality experience for like this tourist destination in Quebec where they had done the French stuff and then they wanted an English voice to do like for the avatars of this AR experience that people were going through. So that was kind of cool. That's a whole other, dubbing is a whole other world, you know, pictures and words on the screen at the same time, timing, hitting it within the certain timing. Yeah. It's like juggling on a unicycle with the things that you're juggling are on fire.
So I guess the reason I brought it up because I've done a certain amount of dubbing, and it's not so much ADR, but the language versioning. And we started the talk right off the top with transcreation, basically the timing stuff. So reading to picture. Now, a lot of what I do with this, Canadian versioning is picture. So there's a real skill there, a real to be able to listen to the original, whether it's another language or it's a guide voice, and to be able to read in real time or slightly delayed, that's a form of dubbing. And I do it a lot. And there are some particularly French voices, but also English voices that can listen in one ear and still bring their performance in real time. So you may be watching picture and listening, or just listening to the other voice and being asked to read in the same syllables, or getting the tops and tails, like getting the beginning and ending at the same time. So I don't know, maybe that's definitely a talk for another time, but it's something you really have to do it to learn it. And I don't know if anyone's training for that. What's your experience with that, Emma?
With dubbing, I've done film work, and there's a guy in Los Angeles that actually teaches it. So for looping and dubbing, it's challenging. But I was in studio with the director, and it was for a foreign film that I was then the English voice for the lead, and it's pretty wild, because it's exactly that, because you're bringing the character to life, but you're also trying to match lip flaps. Like you have to make it look like you are speaking the words out of their mouth, kind of thing. So it is quite challenging, but there's a lot of balls up in the air while you're doing it. You have to be really, really focused on what it is that you're doing. But it is one of those skills. Like, I'm just kind of going through some of the stuff that we talked about tonight of how you book work. And one of the things that you have to be really good at, and I think that people forget about because it's something that's so simple, is cold reads. So it's the same idea. It's using all of these things that you could use YouTube as a great resource, that you can get something, transcribe the video, and then mute the video and practice that way with dubbing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Timing is huge also, Timing.
Oh, absolutely.
Commercial, dubbing, whatever, timing is huge. We were talking about like skilling up with these things is hard. As Dave was saying, like these are the sort of special arrows in your quiver. I think there is somebody out of Montreal, I just can't remember their name, but I know I have them in my socials, that teaches like workshops on dubbing and things like that, particularly for the French language. But yeah, it's balls up in the air and riding your unicycle. There's an expression in French. My French people in the crowd, they will understand. C'est du sport. It is sport.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate very well. Anyways.
Well, it definitely for French. And I've from my very first voiceover jobs, English and French have been the versions being requested. But I think just to finish with this point is, like, when you're working in corporate videos, the editor or even AI now will have a generated temp track. So the point is to try and listen to the guide voice, which is in the same language as yours, and it's not necessarily lip flaps or on camera sync, but to be able to listen to a guide and read along. I think it's a skill that can be practiced, like you said, Emma. Just get a YouTube video or whatever.
Yeah.
But get that conditioning. Like, as a musician, you're listening to other players in the band and you're doing your part, right? So you have to listen to the drummer and you have to do your part. So I think this is something, I'm not sure if it's completely missing the mark on this conversation, but it's something I do all the time. And if someone can do it well, it can turn if they do it very poorly, it can turn a 1 hour session into a 3 hour session. If they do it very well, it can do a 1 hour session in half an hour. They just nail it. So you're listening to a guide voice, and you are performing. You're reading a script, cold reads, nailing the timing, and doing pickups in there. It's something you have to practice, and
Yeah, I love those things. You hit it like a whole bunch of them there, Dave. Like if you are doing, especially when you're working directed sessions, and it doesn't really matter what genre it is, if you can be like, okay, you got the job because you're good at what you do, because you sound great and you're right for the job. That's a start. But if you can be efficient, helpful, deliver, like take direction well, and be good with timing, like, yeah, give me those 15-minute sessions every day. I'll take lots of them, please, because you make Dave's job easier if you just cut the chit chat, be efficient, do what's asked of you. If they say, tighten it up by 10%, know what that means, know how to deliver that. Those are huge, huge, huge tools for you to have.
Very good things to practice with. It's very good things to practice with. Timing, time yourself, know what it is. That's one of the things that, for whatever reason, I have a really good internal clock.
Yep.
That if it's, a 6-second spot or a 15-second spot, I'll have play games with the engineer. I was like, it was 5.7. Oh, it was 5.6. But it's one of the things that I practiced a lot at the beginning of my career, was being able to fit a ton of copy into a very short period of time.
Yep.
While keeping the performance alive, while keeping the enunciation correct. So there's all of these little practice things that you can do. Reading out loud to kids. Reading out loud to kids is one of the best forms of training that you can do for this work, regardless of whether it's corporate narration, e-learning, promo, commercial, TV narration. If you're able to keep the attention of a child, you're doing something good. If you can't, you're dead in the water.
Yeah. Yep. Cold reading, huge. Love it.
There was one thing that was on that you had suggested that we talk about. I'm like, do I bring it up? Because sometimes it can be heated, which is kind of fun. Pro bono work.
It is on the list, yes.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this. How does it play into a voice actor's existence?
I would say if you've got a relationship with a producer, offer to do these guide reads or whatever. I think it's more in the low no sort of world. Like if you have a real job and can afford to offer your time for free, I would say look for those college projects that need a narration for their documentary, or look for those jobs where you can collaborate with people, and it doesn't necessarily, they're not making any money on it, and if you've got the time, do the work. I mean, I haven't done college projects in a lot of years, but I certainly did that. I did music recording and stuff with bands that had no money early on. So if you're new to the business and you're like, I'm not doing that, it doesn't pay, or it's only $20, it's like, if you can afford the time, first of all, it's free education, it's free training, it's free relationship building, and if you look at it that way, then it's not a rip-off, it's not a scam, it's you doing work, you collaborating, and you getting put on, either a video or being put on it really depends. I think the word is, it depends.
There we go again. But you hit the nail on the head, and kind of my golden rule is, if they're not making money, then it's okay. If somebody else is making money, then you should be making money too. The exposure doesn't pay the rent.
Right. And you don't come out of voiceover school and and make a ton of money.
For sure.
And any actor that's doing that, you know, you have to do an awful lot of off Broadways, and you have to do a lot of, you know, workshops, and like it's just how you look at it. You know, if you want to do voiceover and get paid right away, then I just don't think it's realistic. You know, as an artist, you just need 1,000 hours of voice work, and you're not going to get paid for the first whatever number, and you decide what that number is and when your rent is due. But the same goes when I started this business. I had a university degree, and I started as a tape op. You know, I was coming in the morning and setting up the gear and moving patch cables for the first year pretty much, and I was cutting 1/4-inch tape. University arts degree, and I just did the work because I wanted to be there.
Yep.
I don't know if that internship thing is still happening, but it's what I wanted to do, and it made sense to me. And I had hard days, and I had resentments, but I eventually learned what like back to this passion of the human voice and recording human voice, and I made a living out of it. But you're not going to make a living out of it till you're so good at it that you can do it. You're past the learning how to read. You're into art. You're into craft. You're into bringing your personality to things, and that takes I don't know. In your estimation, 1,000 hours is just a number that someone said, but you just got to do a ton of work. And musicians, actors, voice people, anybody in the sort of creative world kind of has to pay to learn. You go to school, you go to these improv classes, or you go to these open mics, and you pay to work with a casting director to read a bunch of scripts for them.
Yeah.
Because you got the attitude that I want this, So until that burns out and you don't make it, and give it your all, dig in, and it will show. Your passion for it will show in your performances. And if you've got the right voice, and if you've got the talent, then it'll happen. You got to stick to it.
Yeah, that brings an underlying point that we end up touching on a lot here, and reminding people that it's a long game, right? It's not there's no overnight success, whether it's voice acting, whether it's regular acting. They say, oh, look at this actor, like out of nowhere, overnight success. But they've been auditioning and they've been busting their can for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden they have a recognizable role in a feature or something, or they book a big commercial campaign. They've been putting in the work, like you're saying, Dave, like put in the work.
There's no such thing as an overnight success. I just like side note on that, I just watched Michael J. Fox's his documentary.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it.
Good.
But he literally talks about that. It's like his dad dropped him off in LA, stayed with him for a little while. He had a little apartment, and then he started selling off his furniture piece by piece because he couldn't afford his rent. He couldn't afford to feed himself. And when he signed with Family Ties and he was being told he had a 6-figure paycheck, he was standing at the fast food restaurant, hoping, being like, wow, I'm being paid 6 figures, but I don't have $1.99 to buy the chicken wings.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the money to feed myself.
Literally right at the ready to go back.
Yeah, and he was in so many different little shows and constantly doing all this stuff, but nobody knew who he was, and he broke his back to get where he is. So it's you always there's no such thing as an overnight success. It's like a 40-year overnight success is usually the story.
Yeah.
So being willing to put the work in, and knowing where your passions lie, like we've been talking about this kind of throughout the evening, of knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your passions are, and being authentically real of bringing you to the table is going to, that's what people hear when they hear your voice. They're listening for you.
Bingo. There it is.
And with that, I think we've covered so much good stuff. Dave, I want to thank you again for coming in and sharing your knowledge and experience and insights with the crew here. This has been a lot of fun.
You're very welcome. I had a great time. I could do this all night.
Yay!
Well, you're welcome to come back. We'll hook it up.
Yeah,
Seriously.
sure.
We'll hook it up.
And I want to wish everybody a lot of luck, and I keep tuning into this roundtable. It's inspiring place to be, and as Emma said, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of support out there. So look for it. Thank you everybody for listening, and good night.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, and again, thanks to Dave, and thanks to our audience and supporters for the great questions and participation and everything. Emma, what do we have going on next week?
Next week we have this. Will I say that we have 2 shows left until we're taking a little summer hiatus?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, it's okay to say that.
Yeah,
it's okay. I think everybody likes to get a break in the summertime.
Absolutely. Next week we have Karin Gilfrey, so I'm really excited about that.
Tell us a little bit about Karin. What should people know, and why would they want to tune in?
What should people know? Karin, if you don't know Karin Gilfrey she runs Vocation, one of the conferences that is in the voiceover world, but she's like the queen of online casting. She is prolific on D123 and voice. She's also the co-founder of NAVA, which is the Voice Actors Union in the United States. They just formed herself and Tim Friedlander formed NAVA. She is a font of information. She's unbelievably talented. She is a force for good in this industry, and I just cannot wait to have her on next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody in our corner in some of these dark times, as we won't go too much into that, but definitely somebody in our corner and rooting for all of us.
Oh yeah.
So we hope you'll join us Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, here on Clubhouse for the Voiceover Roundtable. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.